this project, I'm going to show you how to carve this peach in shallow relief. I'm probably only going to go down about 1/4 of an inch on the outside, lower the background down. I'm not going to lower the whole background down because that just is going to take too much time in this lesson, but I'm going to show you a way I can do that. Just angle the background down so that this looks like it's raised off the background. Now there's a strategic way of doing this, of starting this. I'm going to start with my V-chisel, and there's certain directions that are certainly more safe to go in. Okay, so from here, right at the point where the grain switches, from here in this direction, and from here in that direction. Because if you look at this, the V-chisel is shaped, it's got two flat sides. So when you're carving at a 45-degree angle to the grain, one side is cutting with the grain and one side is cutting against the grain. Well, you need to figure out which side is cutting with the grain because you want the other side to go in the background, because the side that is going against the grain could potentially break the wood and split it out. So you don't want to have that breaking on the actual design itself. So I'm just going to draw some arrows around here and show you what the best direction to go with the grain. Now this whole area here, the circle of the fruit, is really not as critical in this process. Okay, now as I come along here, these are much more fragile. There's a little fragile corner there. So the grain is going in this direction, and so all along there that could potentially break. So I just need to be a little bit more cautious and really be aware of the direction of the grain, particularly on those areas. This one, not such a big deal. But I am going to show you the direction, the best strategic way to go around. So go in this direction, and then to there, and then stop. Now it's pretty much going across the grain there. I could probably get away with just going all the way up, but just to show you, I guess that sort of ideal way of going in the right grain direction is coming from there and then down and then stop. Because if I would continue along, if you look at the shape of the V-chisel, come along like there, it could potentially cut into that side of the wood. Okay, then come in this direction, and that's where I stop and turn around. Okay, now this part here, the little stem, from here in this direction, and then this end probably from there in this direction, go from there up around, and then from here in this direction, and then from here go in this direction, and then down, and then I need to stop as I get to the bottom of that little hill there. Right, and come down there. So we're really looking at sort of the peaks and the valleys. Alright, there's one area right there, coming around from there to there. Then there's this area there, that basically the bottom of the hill, where you come in this direction and that direction. This side of the leaf, come from there and that direction. But I'm going to show you something on this because that's still a very fragile area. So I'll explain a little bit more as we go to that one. I'm removing most of the bulk of the wood around this. I'm not going into any of the details yet, but I'm just simply going around on the outside to remove that bulk of the wood. And then after I remove it with the V-chisel to pretty close the depth that I want it, then I go around and define the exact edge with a vertical cut straight down with whatever gouge fits that edge. And then what happens is it actually gives towards the V-cut, and it doesn't break or damage any of this. Now, again, this is probably going to be the more critical for that, but let me just show you. I'm going to take my V-chisel, and I'm going to follow the directions of the arrow. Okay, and then I'm going to come in this direction, just to go over that top edge. Okay, as you can see, it's not real clean, there's some roughness there, but again, this is not defining that edge, it's just simply removing the bulk of the wood. Okay, so I'm trying to get this as consistent of a depth as possible, but I'm leaving the line visible. Alright, now that's where I need to stop. This is probably the most critical one on this. If I would take that and try to continue on that cut, I would probably break the tip of that leaf off, because I'm coming in that direction, and if you look right here, that will split that, because this side of the V-chisel is cutting against the grain into there. So I want to come in this direction and then end right at the bottom of that hill. Now again, that's kind of messy, but don't worry about that yet, because we still have to define the actual leaf, and we'll do that cleaning up later. Okay, now here I'm going to come from here and go in this direction, going right up to that line, but not taking the line away. I'm trying to get as close as possible to the line. Now you could also use a mallet when you're doing this. I'm just pressing through because basswood will allow me to, and it's soft enough where I don't have to put a whole lot of effort into it. Okay, again, right here I can just probably get away with going in that direction. Okay, so the outline is cut with a V-chisel. Okay, I'm going to start along this side. If I start on the side here and go in this direction, it could potentially end up splitting, actually forcing that to open up. So I want to start at the sort of top of the hill, over the peak, and I'm coming along there. Now this tool right here is a little flat for what this is, so I'm going to show you how to use this and sort of notch it along and make it a little bit more curved than it actually is. Okay, now ideally, if you have that exact curved gouge, then you use that. This is a number 414. That larger one that I just used was a number 318. And I think this number 4 is going to allow me to come along this side. Okay, do you see what I'm doing though? I'm notching that, I'm setting it in the previous cut and then just rolling it along, and I'm actually putting quite a lot of weight and pressure into this cut. Now you could also use a mallet to really make sure that it's solid. Okay, it's looking like my tool is getting a little too curved because I'm getting a little bit of a scallop shape. So I'm going to go back. This is my number 318, and again, come like that and just notch it along. Just to define that line. Alright, and then it's a little bit more of a curve right there. That's where I didn't go that far. Right here. Alright, now that cut there was probably a pretty dangerous cut, because, I don't know if you can see that, but if you see, I'll actually force it open, there's a little bit of a split happening right on the stem there. So, it's always better to take and make this cut first to make a stop cut, okay? Basically making a cut across the grain. Grain's going this way, making this cross the grain cut first, and then go and do that one, okay? Because that stops it from going past that point. Okay, I'm trying to make these as straight up and down as possible. Okay, and if it doesn't really, if the tool doesn't fit exact, then what you want to do you see how I'm sort of tipping that sideways, one side or the other, and just notching it along again. But I want to be careful not to let, like if it, let's say it goes, extends past there, that it's not hitting the background or going too deep into the background, because then you'll see all these hatch marks in the background. and try to not have that. Alright, here's another one where if I make this cut right there, just like that, it could potentially open and split up the leaf right there. So I am going to make this cut first across the grain. And then come back in and make that. Okay, now this part here, I want to be a little cautious here, and I call this my sneaking up cut. If you look at the angle of the tool, I'm going to take like that and take a twisting motion in my chisel, and then just very, very gently straighten it up. Very slowly straighten the tool and eventually make a vertical cut. And then come back on this side and do the same thing, kind of angle it away and then sort of sneak up on it. Because sometimes if you just go straight into the wood on that, it's just going to break off no matter what you try. So just sort of notch it along. Alright, here's another one. The tool is just not quite fitting. So I'm just showing you how to make whatever tools you have do the job. So you don't have to have, 200 tools. But if you want to buy 200 tools, you certainly can. Okay, so the outline is done. Okay, now I'm going to come in and just watch this twisting motion that I do. And it's going to come along and just take a little bit at a time and then go right up to the edge. And you can take a little bit and then go a little bit deeper. I'm probably going to be going about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge. And all this is doing is just simply removing the wood so that the carving itself looks like it's raised off the background. Now, a lot of messy wood there because that vertical cut that I made was not deep enough. And this happens quite often. You just can't get the tool through the wood deep enough. And I'm actually going a little deeper than I had originally thought, so all you have to do then is go back then and define that edge again. Okay, now as it comes into here, sometimes it's a little awkward fitting that in there because of such high edges. So if you want to come back in and with a smaller one just to touch up that little last little amount. Alright, and I just continue along. And this is really where that twisting cut comes in very handy. It's going straight in, but it's also rolling the tool. And it helps it really get through the wood much nicer and cleaner and actually easier. Just forcing it through just takes effort. This is strategy. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is turn this around so I can access, well, I'll do this side of the leaf here, but then I'm going to turn it around so I can come in this direction here. Now again, right here, be very, very careful not to hit that too hard. So I'm just going to end up leaving a lot of these gouge marks. I kind of like the effect of these sort of a different texture in the background. Okay, now I'm taking a little tighter or smaller gouge. This is a number 710, and it's just going to fit into some of these areas and still be curved enough. Now, when I'm taking all of this outside down, whatever tool you decide to use, make sure it's not too flat, because if you use something that's too flat, it'll come in and one side or other will actually go under and dig in underneath the wood. So we want to take it as something that will you can make those cut and both sides of the gouge are still out of the wood, because otherwise it'll make a real mess. Alright, I will turn this around soon. I just keep going and I can't stop. Okay, just going to define the edge a little bit more. This is a number 3/6 that will, this just fits into everything really nicely. And come in this direction. Okay, so first time through you don't really need to take it all away, then come back a little bit further back and go to full depth. First step in starting to carve this is you want to identify where the overlapping parts are. This leaf is laying on top right there, and then there's a little stem right there. That's actually a stem right there that goes into the leaf. So this goes underneath the stem and also the leaf there, and then we're going to have this sloping down. So I'm going to take my V-chisel and I'm going to outline that. And this actually is going down that direction, and that's probably going to be stepped down too, because it needs to look like it's running right into there. So this is going to be interesting. There's a lot happening there that is, you would think it would just be easy, leaf overlapping fruit and then stems, but it's not that simple. So I'm going to start here, and again, it's a good idea to go in the right grain direction with this V-chisel. Again, the grain's going like that, so I'm going to come from there in that direction, and then from there in that direction. And I think I'm safe here because this leaf, this little stem here, is going to look like it's going underneath the leaf. So I'm going to go and just run right off the end there, separating the overlapping parts. Okay, and then also going to come along here, and with the V-chisel on this side of the line, right, just going to knock that down a little bit. Okay, and then what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to take and lower this part down so it looks like it's just going underneath there. Alright, and then I'm also going to be defining the edge of that. Okay, that little stem is going to go way back there. We still have some room. Okay, so just give the illusion that that's just a step underneath there. And then this part here should look like it's going down and angling down there. And then this is where you can separate that off. Just be very, very careful. Just a little bit of a step there, and then the stem of the leaf is there. So anyway, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I don't like to do that kind of detail so soon, and I probably will be adjusting it as we go. But I just wanted to locate this one's furthest back, then this, and then that. And this is lowered underneath there. Okay, to go in the best grain direction, I'm going to come in this direction around there, and same way that I went with the V-chisel, coming from there to there, and then from there to there. And I'm just going to round over just the outside edge. And I'm going to take my number 414. Okay, so as it's, I've got the bevel side up, and I'm going all the way to the background. So I don't see any of that original line, and this sort of cleans up any rough edges too when you're sort of hollowing out the background. If the tool hit that edge, this will clean that up. Now as it comes over to the surface, the flatter surface, I turn the tool over with bevel side down and just kind of shave off those little areas there. And I'm going to come from this direction around. And in order to give the illusion that this is a little bit more round than it actually is, I'm just rounding over just along the edge, but I'm rounding it over pretty aggressively. And a good example of this is if you look on a coin, you look at on the face of a coin, and it's only rounded over just at the edges of the design. Very shallow relief carving, but it gives the illusion that it's a lot deeper than it actually is. So kind of a rule that I use is about however deep you're going here, you're going back in that far. So you really have a quarter round, and then what I do is just taper it in and fade it or feather it in over the surface. Yeah, I knew I was going to go in there a little bit more. Just wipe that stem right out. Okay, so now on this side, I'm going to come again, round it over. Now, if it turns out that it's just very awkward to turn the tool over like this, I just do the whole thing with the tool, with the bevel side down. And you can do that. It's just a little bit more facets show up, but it's okay. It's hand carved. That's allowed. So sometimes, if the grain isn't working with you, you may have to come and go across the grain like that. Okay, so even though this is flat pretty much from there all the way over, it's completely flat, it still gives the illusion that it is a round piece of fruit. Now where I lowered this down, you don't really want that to be too visible or too obvious. So blend that in. Okay, I'm going to just take my V-chisel here and very lightly fade it in there and then go deeper and then fade it out. Okay, and then just take that same 414, or you can use a flat chisel here too, but just taking around off these little section that gives it that peach look. Now this is where it's very easy to let the tool, the corner of the tool, go into that curve or the base there, so just come back with a V-chisel if you need to do any cleanup. Okay, and then this, I'm going to come in this direction and round that over all the way to the background. And then come in this side and round that side over. Again, it's important to make sure that you go in the right grain direction. If I went in this direction, I could end up cutting into or against the grain. Okay, now this little end here, just going to take a little bit of an angle. And now the leaf. This is going to be, since it's high here, it's above the fruit there, and this is going to sort of hollow out. So let's just start to hollow that out and see how that goes. But watch that twisting right there, because I really am very cautious to not break that end off. So I can come in this direction also. Alright, and then just try to remove. Yeah, in order to save that corner, I want to come from here Okay, now again, think about when we are rounding this over. I want to come in this direction, round that over, and that direction to round that over. And this direction to round it over here, and that. Now I'm not going to round all over that nice sharp edge, but I'll go a little ways. But I want to make sure I'm going in the right grain direction from that point. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my V-chisel and I'm going to do a little bit of an S curve right there. And then just let it fade off right there. And just to give it a little bit more shape, I'm going to come and round it down to there. starts to fight with you like that and says, no, listen to it and turn around and go in the other direction. Alright, now I'm just going to draw a few little secondary vein lines. And this is just a little V-cut. Nothing huge. But make sure it's a nice twisting curve. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're looking for. Now I'm just going to go over very lightly over that flat planed surface, because I never like to see that as a transition between the carved and the flat. It's very obvious. Okay, there's one little thing here, that corner there. I'm going to take my number 3/6 and just knock off that edge there, and that just cleans it up very, very nicely. If you have any high edges, high corners that are a little rough, and I also haven't really finished that little stem in there, but if you can get the tool in there, just try to round over that little stem, and it's sort of disappearing. Okay, well, there's a sweet little carving of a peach, and you can see it's not very deep at all, probably not even 1/4 of an inch. But you can see the shape of the leaf, and just round it over along the edge.